Welcome to Permission to Kick Ass, a podcast about leaving self-doubt in the dust, punching fear in the face, and taking bold action toward your biggest dreams. I'm Angie Coley, and let's get to it. Hey, and welcome back to Permission to Kick Ass. With me today is Hillary Weiss.
Hi, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I've been honestly dying to get on this podcast.
Oh, that's awesome.
Hello, darling.
You are welcome on any. I have a feeling that we could even just have a side show. I know you already have one with Margot, but like Margot, bring me on.
I'm always in the market. Let's do it.
And I love that you've got the disco ball headphones on here too. It's fantastic. They never get to see the video, by the way. So I love just telling them what I'm seeing so they can be jealous.
Just so everyone knows, I'm very fabulous, right?
Yes. Okay. Incredibly fabulous. So tell us a little bit about what you do. What's your business?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm Hillary Weiss, as Angie just mentioned. So I was a copywriter for about 10 years. And then in 2020, I formally retired. There was a party and everything. And now I do, the core of my work is positioning coaching. And I offer a power position where I work with creative business owners basically to make their businesses make sense and reimagine things from the inside out. Because I find so many freelancers, creative service providers, and business owners technically sort of build the plane as they fly it as the business is starting. Because all of a sudden, like there's your first client and they're giving you money and you're like, oh. And then so you kind of go through the first 2 or 3 years and everything's piecemeal. And then you're like, okay, so it's kind of working, but I'm riding through business life and it's kind of jalopy. How do I turn this into something that's actually going to work and get me where I want to go? Because now I have bigger goals. So what we do is we take a look at every part of the business. We look at their, specialty, what they do so well that nobody else can do, the big idea. What is it's not about just what you do so well, but for who. And then also what's your signature approach? What's your framework? And how do we turn that into messaging and higher ticket, really clean offers and an approach to content and self-promotion that really feels good and kind of anchors into what they do really well. And that's why we call it power position, right? And then I also do creative direction for certain tiers of my power position clients and standalone, where I do brand strategy. So soup to nuts, where we go through mission, vision, target audience. We just sort of collect everything. And then of course we develop a creative concept, an overarching creative concept for the brand that we represent visually through photos, colors, fonts, all that good stuff. So it's overall positioning, coaching, and creative direction is my bread and butter. And I also teach hot seat coaching. This is something I'm really passionate about as a tool to learn how to teach. And also it's a great tool for self-promotion, like one of the best ones out there. And I also sometimes I teach content planning, but only when I'm feeling fancy. So that's what I do. Yeah.
I love all this because to me, like what you just did is the epitome of a great offer, telling people what you do, all the fantastic value. And then there's people like me who are a little bit ADHD and I follow you on Instagram. And the last time I saw you take pictures with a client, I was like, that's it. I'm fucking sold. Like, look at the pictures. They look great.
I'm someone also with ADHD. Actually, I just got my diagnosis. I feel you. And I'm almost always proudest to show the photos. I'm like, look what we did. And it fits into a million other things. Like it's crazy what my clients will let me do. Like I had my client in a bathtub covered in toy ball pit balls.
I think that's the one that I saw.
Yeah.
That
was Renee. Yeah, she's amazing. I had someone up a ladder. I had Kim Krause-Schwalm on a throne next to another throne. It's been a whole thing. It's very
and those fucking boots that she had.
Yeah.
Oh,
those were her idea. She had these amazing red thigh-high boots with this red leather jacket. It was so killer.
Oh, I can't wait to see what you do with Permission to Kick Ass. Like
Gonna be some big boots. Very exciting.
A bulldozer.
I cannot wait. Literally, just say when I'm ready to go.
That's awesome.
I would love to.
Well, tell me a little bit about what made you transition out of copy into doing this.
Yeah. And I think this is, so one thing that I always kind of had a vision in my mind. I actually found a post of mine all the way back in 2013 in another group I was in just by accident. Long story about how it came up, but where I was saying like, eventually I want to be a creative director. Like I want to do overall brand strategy and I want to be putting these pieces together because I think as copywriters, especially, we're in a really unique position where we end up sort of in the engine. I always describe it as the engine room of all of these like giant cruise ships, right? Because as a hired gun, you're like getting into all of these businesses and finding out what's under the hood. And that's also why probably copywriters are among some of the most disillusioned subcontractors in the industry. And two, It's because we have to snap in, we have to learn a lot about the business itself very quickly. So you learn a lot about how other businesses, how their strategy works, how their offers fit together, how the ecosystem fits, how like what the big idea of the brand is, how to improve it. And so it gives you a lot of latent skills that actually serve a broader brand strategy purpose ultimately. And that's why you see so many copywriters going into branding and brand strategy, because A, it's really fucking fun. And B, because it's a really great, you kind of realize over the years in copy, and this was what happened to me, was I realized that I had so many skills that could be applicable to so many more things. And there would be so many more people that I could work with and jam with and help if I just pulled myself out of this kind of pigeonhole area of writing copy. And it was a really actually kind of a wild decision. People looked at me like I had 6 heads when I told them what I was going to do, because I was a very visible space in the industry. I was very well known. It was something that I'd been speaking at events, teaching copy for years. I'd been a voice in the space for a long time. And I was like, maybe this isn't for me anymore. Maybe I wanted to grow into something else. And it took me actually about 3 years to ultimately make the shift, because I wanted to do the necessary, like some people just jump. I'm not much of a leaper. I'm more of like a cautiously edging my way up and like setting my little rope and like gradually gliding down.
Takes me about 6 months to make a decision minimum.
Exactly. And honestly, that has served me well. Things have gone a little slow, but there haven't been any big jolts. We have this saying, my husband and I, our family motto is always bold, never reckless. And I know, right? My mom came up with that one. So
I like that.
Just like in passing. And so we adopted it as our own. And so anyway, I realized that I wanted, because there's so much fun to be had in the brand strategy and positioning and coaching work that I'm doing. Because first of all, in 10 years, I'd had every business model under the sun already that a creative business provider can have. I'd done everything. I tested like every price point of package. I'd worked on so many campaigns. I've also been doing this higher level brand strategy work kind of on the side. And I had been advising friends. I'd been doing my own branding, my own photo shoots. I've been advising friends on their branding and photo shoots for free, for fun, and for years. So I was like, okay, I think it's time to commit. I think it's time to put my eggs in this little basket. And so again, it took about 3 years. And actually a heart-wrenching part of the story is that I was supposed to be launching this new arm of the business. I was easing my way out of copywriting, and I was like, okay, so I'm going to launch the creative direction. And I've been doing the positioning coaching on the side for about a year by that point. But I hadn't really talked about it. It had like been very underground, very word of mouth. And so I was supposed to be launching it formally and like being like, ta-da, here's what I've been doing secretly behind the scenes, everybody. And that was supposed to be April of 2020. So in March of 2020, I don't know if you've heard about this thing, but there was like a global pancetta, I think it was. And all of New York City shut down. And I remember it was wild. We don't talk about this enough in the industry, but like everything stood, I don't know if this happened to you, but everything stood still for like a month.
I know you and I are in one of the same copywriting communities, the Copywriter Club. And I was actually at their San Diego event when all that started happening.
Oh my God, right.
And I remember making a joke to people that like, if Disney World goes, everybody's going. Like everything will shut down if Disney shuts down. And the next day, Disney announced I was like, shit.
I said the same thing about the NBA. I was like, if the finals if I'm not even a basketball person, but I was like, as soon as that shut down, I was like,
Like, I love being right. But in that instance, I hated being right.
I'm not ideal. I mean, who can you say I told you so to at that point? Like the world? No one wants to hear it. It's not nearly as fun. But so that they shut down, and I remember I like went to bed on that Sunday night after, because I live in New York City in Brooklyn, and we were like ground zero, right? Again, for COVID. And I remember I went to bed on Sunday night with the world shut down. My husband had like fought his way through the grocery store to like get us toilet paper and stuff, because that was just so bad. And I went to bed, and I woke up on bed Sunday night, woke up Monday morning with 20K in contracts just up in smoke.
Holy shit.
And I was like, oh God, what have I done? And I remember being so angry and frustrated but I'd waited so long to introduce this. And I was like, now nobody's going to want to buy this. No one's thinking about like brand strategy right now with the way the world is going. And to a point, so I was like, I just got to keep up with copywriting for a little longer. And to a point, I was right, but I continued with those projects and have never felt more resentful doing my job in my life. Because I was like, gotta pay the bills, but I shouldn't be here right now. Like if I hadn't dragged my feet and been so scared for so long to just commit And so it only took a few more months, but by July that summer, I was having my retirement party, and I was like, you know what? Can I swear? I already dropped the F-bomb. Okay, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna throw the copywriting into the garbage, and then I'm just gonna do this. And if it doesn't work, fine. The world is already ending. No one will really know. Like, everyone's got things other to focus on aside from the fact that I might have to crawl back to copywriting. But ultimately, it worked really well, and it was a really smooth transition. And I blew out my revenue numbers from the year prior, which was pretty cool.
Oh, I love stories like that. Like being so scared to make the leap, being so scared to leave one thing that you know for sure behind, and then winding up having such success. Like just showing yourself what you're capable of.
Yes.
When you leave the fear behind. Ugh.
Yeah. And all of that planning and preparing was not for, I may have spent a little too long marinating, but nevertheless, it's always, I always think about that when everyone's like, should I just go for it? And it's like, well, yeah, but also what do you have in place to prepare people? Have you warmed anyone up to this? So fortunately, all the groundwork that I laid ended up working out. And I felt really, really lucky. And I just, the work that I do now is just so awesome because it uses all the pieces of my brain, biz dev, brand strategy, offer development, positioning, messaging. And you
look marketing. Like you're having a lot of fucking fun. Like
having a blast. Don't tell nobody, but it's so much fun. And especially like I've always dreamed of being behind the camera. Like I'm not the photographer, but like directing photo shoots and doing visual branding. Oh,
nice.
It's really cool to see it all come together, especially on these shoots, and just have a chance to really just see if what I've dreamed about basically since I was like a little kid. But mostly since, as far back as 2013, see that come to life and have a chance to do that. It's really special.
Oh man, that's amazing. And I want to circle back to something that you said before about being pigeonholed as a copywriter. Yeah. I think a lot of people that are just starting out or, they've only been in it for a couple years. I know that a lot of the copywriters that I've been coaching find it hard to believe that like one day you probably won't want to write this anymore.
Listen closely, Jill. Let's talk about that part. So I would say like I first of all, I still love the copywriting profession. Like it gave me my job. It gave me what I do now. And the community is so wonderful. And like I owe everything to my copywriting peeps and the copywriter club and everyone that I've known and the clients that I've known. And because I was also doing so much in the copywriting world. Like I was speaking and teaching and educating and helping other copywriters and inspiring and doing all those fun things. But where I felt pigeonholed was I did not want to do the execution anymore.
Yep.
And I felt like, and while what I love about copywriting is there's always something new to learn. There's always a new breakthrough, a new development in persuasion and behavioral science and all these interesting things. But I felt like I just kind of found where the sidewalk ended for me, where it just stopped feeling so exciting to learn about this stuff in some ways. I was like, okay, that's cool. But I lost my competitive edge. I wasn't as hungry anymore. And I'm sure you relate to this because you've been a copywriter for many years as well, where it's just very much, in some ways, you have to want to be better than the guy next to you. And everyone's like collaboration over competition. I'm like, yes, don't be an asshole. But there's some competition to sales. Exactly. And you want to be the best, and that's the way I see everything. And you want to have that edge. You want to stand on what's hot in the industry. You want to have the knowledge. You want to be on again, the bleeding edge of the industry and skill set. And at that point I was like, I'm good. I want to learn about other things now. And so when I say pigeonholed, I just want to stress that is no shade at all to the copywriting world. I owe everything to my copywriting career, but it very much was like, I think I'm done talking about this. Like I want to move on to other things now. There's stuff that excites me more that I think is more interesting for people to learn about and get my perspective on than, the gongs I'd been banging for so many years at that point.
And I totally get that because, we have a similar background in that you were more in front of people and teaching copy and stuff like that. And I was always behind the scenes working with big teams. And I never really stepped out and taught much, but I wasn't really interested in teaching copy as well. But I remember about halfway through 2020, just hitting that wall of I really don't want to write about launches anymore. I freaking love working for this team that I work for. I love being on stage when he puts me on stage because he's a big marketing name. I just don't want to do it anymore. And as I kind of worked out, it took me 6 months to actually work up the courage to leave.
There it is. Just crawling, not taking the leap, crawling towards the edge of the cliff and peeking over it for some time.
And even then, like they kept like renewing a 30-day contract and we would be working on different projects together before. It's like, okay, guys, okay, I have to go.
That's enough. Yeah.
But the cool thing about that too, is in retrospect, I realized that was actually like a position of power, because I know what would have happened if I had kept working through that point where I realized I was done. I would have burned a bridge.
Yes.
I would have like lazed out at some point and been totally done. It would have ended with them mad at me because I'm not doing my best.
Yep.
I love that, because we wound up ending on a high note, and then just the fact that they were extending the contracts like that showed that they still valued the relationship. We still found a way to, like, if there's nothing else to get from this story, there is a good way to break up to where you still be friends. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the other thing I think we sometimes forget, especially, and I know I had this experience too, working as a part of a larger team. You kind of forget that you have autonomy sometimes, and that it's such a wonderful and exciting thing about running your own business, but it's also incredibly high pressure, because nobody is going to make that exit for you. And I think so many business owners just sort of let the like yarn run out, you know, at the end, and then I've had this experience, unfortunately, on my end when I was younger, because I started my business very early, 21 years old, didn't know how to act, right? So I definitely had some client relationships where I just let it fizzle out and just was so burnt out. I just dropped the ball towards the end of it. The ball just dropped and they knew I didn't want to be there anymore. And that sucks, you know? But I didn't have the skills to have hard conversations. So I blew it up because I was mad. Exactly. Because I was upset and tired and cranky, you know? But I think it's such an awesome freedom to have the ability to say, I'm out, fire the client, wind down the relationship. But it takes a lot of work to do so tactfully. And I think there's a lot of talk about just like, you know, just leave, cut the boundary, do that. And it's like, no, don't leave people in the lurch, because every time I have burned a bridge in business, and it's been very few times, because I'm a very diplomatic animal. But all the times I have burned the bridge, I've been like, shit. Shouldn't have burned that bridge. And even if it feels good in the moment, even if it's justified, even if my rage was like reasonable and like everyone else was cheering me on and like heard about like, oh, you said that, that's so cool. And like looking back on it a year or 2 years later, it's just like, oh God, why did I do that? Yeah. You know, because you can't get that back. You can't get that back. But as you want to pursue other things in business, and, you know, old ways of working and being are no longer working, like it's still so important that you close those things out cleanly. And with empathy, because, you know, just because you're leaving somebody behind doesn't mean you got to leave them in the lurch. Right?
Oh, yeah. And you never know when people are talking about you. So there's like a bad way to take that, but there's also a good way to take that. And we don't really talk about that a whole lot. But if you're out there and you're not being a dick, and you're doing good work, and you're fun to hang out with, you're easy to work with, there are people out there that are talking about you, and they're not talking shit. They're talking good things about you.
I know. Yeah.
Like this just happened to me this week where, you know, somebody booked a slot with me to talk about potential consulting arrangements. And I asked him, oh, you know, it's been a couple of years since we talked. Like, what made you reach out now? And he goes, oh, I was talking to so-and-so the other day, and she mentioned your name. And I was like, oh, well, crap, I haven't talked to her in a while either. Like, these connections happen all the time. And I've told some of my coaching students before, like, the toes that you step on today may be connected to the ass you have to kiss tomorrow.
Right up your butt tomorrow in a boot. Yeah, no doubt. And I think that's something that we forget when we think about marketing and self-promotion. Great, awesome. But the most powerful promotion out there for you is what other people say about you behind closed doors. And that was, for me, it's funny because I had this conversation with a colleague about reputation, because she did raise a good point that I think, especially for women in business, the fear of like protecting your reputation can keep you from making big swings, or like, you know, making electrifying promises in your copy and all of that. So she's like, fuck reputation. And I was like, yeah, but no, absolutely not. I'm not throwing that into the garbage, because my reputation time and time again, you know, and it's not complicated. It's being good to your people, being honest, being professional, doing your job and treating other people with respect. Yeah. It's incredible how people remember, like it's that saying, how people remember that. People don't remember what you did or what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. That's so true in business. And that doesn't mean kowtow and be a doormat, because a big issue with me was that my boundaries were terrible. I had like spun sugar boundaries for a while, because I was like, everyone needs to like me, and they need to do everything. And like, yes, okay, you say jump, I say how high, like I'm a workhorse, I'm a miracle worker, let's go, baby. And then I was like, why am I so ill all the time? So there's a middle ground, that's for sure. But I think that's such a wonderful part about learning to run a business and learning to be a pro in the space is how do you have the business you want to have, the boundaries you want to have while still being a good person to other people. It's a worthwhile balance to strike, because then people say nice things about you at the conference bar.
And contrary to popular belief, having boundaries doesn't mean that you're a hard ass. Doesn't mean that you come in throwing your weight around and telling people this is how it's going to be. Like none of that. I am known for somebody who if one of my life mottos could easily be take no shit, but do no harm.
Amen. Amen. Yep.
People know that they can't push me around, and they also know I'm going to bombard them with memes.
Yes,
and we're going to laugh our asses off. Like
wide open heart, big fucking fence. It's just, that's not an original quote. I think that's from Danielle Laporte from some years ago. But yeah. And I think especially like when you see like Gen Z boundary TikTok, it's like that person's toxic, cut them off. It's like, oh, all right, Jesus Christ, people.
Yeah.
But
not everybody is toxic. Okay. Put away the pitchforks.
Yes.
It's going to be okay. Yeah. Not everybody is deliberately trying to piss you off.
Yeah.
And it's fairly easy to tell when they're deliberately pissing you off, because there's just like this irrational rage factor. But like if you take the time to step back, do some downward dog, some yoga, punch something light. I'm a big fan of lighting things on fire as a form of therapy. Do what you need to calm down. And then you can usually find a reason like, oh, it makes sense. They fell off the face of the earth. Maybe they were in a car accident. Maybe they had a death in the family and everything just got put on pause. They didn't pay my bill for 2 weeks. Those same 2 instances that I just mentioned still apply. And if you approach those people with, hey, checking in, wanted to see what's going on. Is there anything I can do to help? Versus like, you asshole, we were supposed to get started on this 2 weeks ago. What's your problem?
Yep. Everyone loses when you do that. You lose, the client loses, your bank account loses. And it's interesting because it's so, I think when we think strong boundaries, we think like, no, absolutely not. And here's my very blunt response. But I find in business, of course, like I will rage at my husband, I will rage at whoever's in the vicinity. Like I will spill that word vomit on them, and I will stomp around and stamp my feet and punch the air. But eventually when I actually do respond, it's like, okay, well, let's talk about this, coming from a place of neutrality, to just state, hey, this is not like, let's say we have a client who wants too many calls, and I'm like, another fucking call is like this, my, just saying, what do you think? I made a time, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, it's, I'm sorry, you get to the email and it's like, hey, sorry about that. Or not even apologizing, just saying, hey, as per policy, this isn't possible. However, what I would suggest is ABC, and being able to just sort of come at it from that space, especially when if somebody's like crossing your boundaries and grappling for more time, attention, and energy, it's because something's going on to stress them out and make them horribly anxious.
Oh God. So I was laughing because I was on a mastermind call this morning where we were laughing about per my last email. Like even professional language.
You got me fucked up.
Yeah. I was like, I jumped in and I was like, subtext, per my last email, bitch.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting where I've definitely been in some situations where I have laid a very calm smackdown in the inbox, which has been like really gratifying. And I have no regrets at this juncture. But I also think, it's beyond the client side. It's also as somebody who has a team and who hires, and I know it's the same thing for you. Subcontractors also can be flaky and challenging. And I actually had an issue with a subcontractor last year where I essentially got ghosted on a 10K contract. And I was irate because I make good money. I'm not made of $10,000. Yeah. But I'm not made of 10 stacks, y'all. But
not yet. It's coming.
It turned out that she was she didn't get into details, but this particular subcontractor was at a crisis point in her life and was just like, listen, I'm sorry. Like, I'm going to refund your money. And like, when I finally got a hold of her, she's like, I'm going to refund your money. And I'm sorry about this. This is not the way I usually do things, but XYZ. And I was like, and I could have torn her a new asshole because it had created such a horrible domino effect around one of my launches and all this. And I was like, you know what? I believe her that she's at a point at a juncture of challenge and is struggling right now with health and everything. So what I'm going to do is just say, okay, I understand. Thank you for letting me know, and let her move on with kindness. And I actually heard from her about a year later saying like, hey, I just wanted to let you know that like my life, that things are back on track. And I will never forget that you showed me grace and not much to my own horn, but she's like, you showed the grace and humanity you showed when I was going through that process. It really meant something. And I just wanted to say, thank you for that. And I was like,
I love that. I love that. Like if you, this is a perfect place to practice empathy, especially for those of us that feel like we don't have empathy as a skill. I didn't always have it as a skill, but I practiced it. Like, okay, so if I was going through some rough shit, how would I want someone to respond to me? I certainly like don't want someone to start calling me every name in the book, piling on to what I'm already feeling like a dirtbag for letting them down.
Yeah.
I don't need them to point out to me all the ways that I need to feel like shit for this.
Doesn't help. Yeah. Doesn't help. And it doesn't help you. And it doesn't help the person who's having a hard time, you know?
And like some point last year, I don't even remember what led to this, but I remember this like crystal clear thought popping into my head, and it's informed how I do business. Yeah. I never want to be the reason that somebody gave up on themselves. Yes. Never, ever. Never.
Yes. Yeah.
So that doesn't mean that I am like Susie Sunshine and I puff people up with a whole bunch of bullshit. I will 100%. Be real with people on the pros and cons of stuff like that, but I'm never going to come to somebody and tell them, I don't think that that's possible.
Yeah.
Or be even mean. So I had somebody a while back in a coaching group that brought to me like this super ambitious plan. They were like really new to business, but they wanted to launch like a $25,000 offer. And my brain immediately went to that space, right? We're like, we want to find the holes. We want to pick this apart. But I stopped myself and said, okay, don't want him to give up on himself.
Yeah.
Hey, here's the challenges. Here's the places where you could potentially win. I'm struggling with this. I haven't ever seen this done before, but I would love to be proved wrong in this. You go out there, baby, you make your $25,000 offer and you come back and share it with us and we will celebrate you when you're done.
Yep. Oh God, that's so true. And this takes me actually back to my copywriting days too, because I see this, especially in my early days when the space was even more the Wild West than it is now. And I'd have clients being like, I want to sell this offer and do this thing. And I would see it and be like, oh, you can't see my face, but I'm making a cringe face. I was like, oh, Jesus, is this going to work? It's not my job to shit on somebody's dream. Yes. It's not my job to assume that I know what's going to happen, because often there was an offer and I was like, I don't think this is going to work. And it would be a smash hit. And I'd be like, oh, well, I don't know anything. Because I was also new and I didn't know anything. But I see this in my coaching work too, where I have people come to me, especially in power position, which is my positioning coaching offer, being like, hey, I want to do this. I want to sell this for this much. And usually what's more frustrating is they're usually trying to sell it for too low. But sometimes somebody comes in with like it's just like your client, a hugely ambitious plan that I'm not 100% sure they're ready for, but it's not my job to say not right now. It's my job to say to exactly what you said. It's sort of like, okay, well, personally, I'm super excited about this. I think this is really ambitious. I think if you're dedicated, like anything can happen. If anyone can do this, it's you. Here are the challenges I see. Here are some ways to kind of ladder up if you do hit a wall. But let's do this. Let's see what happens. And people amaze me time and time again, because it's not our job to police and monitor. And this is because everyone thinks about empathy, right, as this like fluffy thing where it's like, make people feel heard and feel good about themselves. Yeah.
I think it's a vital skill.
It's a vital skill, and it's much trickier than just making a person feel good. It's finding a way to meet somebody where they are, meet them at the level, be honest with them, but also be open to the fact that you don't know everything. And this could blow you away. You may not, just because you haven't experienced this or done this personally yourself doesn't mean it isn't possible. And I think that in a coaching relationship, it's so important to say when it's like, don't just send somebody out into the wilderness being like, yeah, you're going to make $1 million. Sure, baby. But it's much more that finding that empathy to be honest and say like, I love this dream for you. Here's what I see as the challenges. Here's what I recommend laddering up, and honestly, go for it. I'll be there at your elbow. Let's go.
I'm so glad you said that, because like this is not Susie fucking Sunshine.
Yeah.
Not like the power of positive thinking. Whatever you will, you believe.
God help us all. Reality. Yeah, Jesus.
You do have to have a certain amount of positive thinking, but like there's there was like wish in one hand, shit in another. Which one fills up first? That is a saying. Well, at least in Texas. I'm Southern. We have.
I love some. We don't have that. We didn't have that in Florida, but I'm stealing that one.
It's like,
Amen. Who
colorful
knows?
sayings in Texas.
Love
But
that.
yeah, like
Love that.
wishful thinking. It's not really going to get you far without taking the action.
Yeah.
A is for action. Stop studying. Take action.
Yeah. And it's honestly, expectation setting is one of the trickiest parts of coaching work. And I like, honestly, any creative work. Cause even in my copy days, people were like, okay, well, now that you're writing the copy, I'm going to make $1 billion. And it's like, oh, my friend, there are so many other factors that go into this that have nothing to do with copy, product market fit, how warm your list is, how engaged your audience is, if you're talking to the right person, if this is a fit for what they need right now, all of those
the entire
aspects.
Country shuts down for something that we don't talk about. Yeah.
Or that. And it's just, it's so fascinating because I often feel like you got these young guns swaggering up like they know everything, right? You get these young copywriters who took like 3 courses and they made like, 6 figures in their first or second year. So they totally know everything. And it's just like, oh man, wait till you get to year 5. You have your existential, do I know anything, actually questions, because the more certain you feel like you are that you know everything, the further you are behind already.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. That's the funniest thing. The further I go, the more I realize I don't know.
Yeah. It's very Buddhist of us. We're like, I know nothing. Amazing.
I know. We're
so fun.
Listen to us being so fucking wise. This is amazing.
You're welcome, everybody.
Oh gosh. And I remember one of my this happened recently too, with one of my coaching students. They were like, how can I convince my client that I'm an expert when I don't know all the answers there are to know? And I was like, I don't know like practically anything in the scheme of things. And yet you think I'm an expert. And they were like, but you have all this experience. And I was like, of fucking things up, traction relationships, doing promos that I thought would do great that wound up bombing. Like
tanked. I got humbled. I got humbled a million times before I got here. Yeah. And I think that's such I think I was blessed with a lot of success very early in my career because I was in the right place at the right time. But I got humbled because I took big swings. And what's wonderful about the courage of youth and being in those early sort of years of business is that like you've got all this energy and you know all the answers and you're like, I want to try this and that. Nobody's done this yet. How come? The opportunity is right there. And then you start doing and testing all these things and like attempting to like make these swings. And you're like, oh, wait. Yeah. Okay. There's a reason nobody's done it this way or tried this. And I made actually a reel about this on Instagram not long ago about originality, where there's like a big, and I think to a point, there's a lot of a truth here where it's like, so many things in the industry are like in like advertising and creative industries are a copy of a copy and like everyone's using the same strategy. And I'm like, okay, well, true as that may be, where there's a copycattery issue on the internet, no doubt. But when it comes to stuff like strategy and structure, like, okay, friend, the world is ready for your brand new, never before seen, never thought of, based on nothing strategy and structure. Give it to us and show us how it works. Yeah. And of course there's nothing, because everything in creative work in general builds on itself. There's very few purely original ideas. Everything's an old thing done a new way, a new thing done an old way in advertising, but that was a big humbling moment for me where I was like, I'm going to figure this out. I see this, and this wrong with the industry and I'm going to take another way. And I took the other way and I was like, oh no. Oh no, this wasn't actually wrong. I misunderstood it. Oh God. And then I had to backpedal and delete some blog posts and,
that was the dangerous path. Shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Where were the signs?
Listen, there's the path to innovation is lonely in general. Yeah. But I think when you're innovating, not to solve a problem, but to prove that you know better, you will get lost very quickly. Yeah.
The solving the problem is a key thing. I know it's been funny because I had, a couple people that were on the newer end of the spectrum that I'd work with that got hung up on this fear of like, but there are so many other people doing this. I can't do it too. And I was like, the fact that so many other people are doing this is proof that there's a market there. Yep. Like the person that is the innovator, the Elon Musks and the Steve Jobses of the world are the ones that are out there taking arrows and being tripped and being made fun of and being told that they're fucking dumb and they'll never do it. Like, people are being mean to those guys. That's the battle that they're fighting. I'm lazy and I'm sensitive and I would rather come in after Elon has proven his case.
Exactly.
I got an electric car too. and it's cheaper.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. Thanks, Elon. Much love.
Yes.
But it's interesting where I think, again, you see a lot of talk in the space about what's wrong. And this is the pitchforks, like what's wrong with the industry, and I'm going to fix it. And I'm one of the good ones, and blah, 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 blah. And the further you get along, you're like, okay, hang on a second. Like the reason that person was sending so many emails wasn't because they were greedy or like their stuff didn't sell or they wanted my money. It's because sending a lot of emails is like how you make sales.
Yeah.
And
that
person,
works.
yeah, exactly. And that person isn't constantly talking about her offers just because she loves herself. It's because she's running a business, and that's how you make money. You know, it's like those little judgments that when you're early in the space, and especially I think when you're in a skill set like copywriting, for which there's always demand, you kind of get a little lost in the sauce about how good you are at marketing yourself when the business is referral based. And then when you want to do something new or sell products or something, all of a sudden you're like, oh, now I see. All right.
Or you can start to conflate like taste and preference with success and viability.
Right.
Like I was having an interesting conversation with somebody this morning that was offended over a friend of mine sending out an email that said the word balls in the subject line. And yet he's a dude, and he was talking about his actual balls.
Yeah. Excellent. Good for him. Empower men.
Yes, it was a funny, and it was actually a really well done. It wasn't like as disgusting as it might sound, but they were complaining to me and saying, you know, this is just, it's wrong. And I was like, well, he's on track to do $1 million in business this year. So he's got to be doing something right, even if this particular email is not necessarily
distasteful
yours
to you. Yeah. Yep. The amount of people I've had come and lecture me on like, well, if your offers were good, you wouldn't need to market them. I'm like, I have some extremely bad news for you, my friend. I have some just terrible news. Please, are you sitting down? But and I think it's fascinating because you get humbled in that way the longer you're in business, because we're you know, as business owners, we're responsible for creation and fulfillment. And that is such a trickier experience when you're not just working in like write me this copy and go, you know, when you actually want to create these things people can use and buy, and like tools and structured containers and all of these things. It's just a totally different part of the universe. And that's what I work on a lot of my clients with in like power position, because they're like, I don't want to just be a copywriter anymore, or a designer, or a strategist. I want to do XYZ thing because there's a bigger mission here. And it's like, yep. All right, let's talk about it. And then let's figure out where there's demand. And I love that you raised the point that people are like, well, I don't know if I want to do this because everyone else is doing it. Like there is something to be said for like the blue ocean strategy. For those who don't listen, it's like a theory of marketing. There's like a red ocean and a blue ocean, and the red ocean is where everyone else is. And the blue ocean is hopefully creating your own category. But there's so many ways to tailor an offer or something that like a lot of other people are doing for the audience that you want to serve, for in a specific delivery pattern and a specific this. There's just so many different flavors of ways to do things. It's sort of like that math problem where there's like 11 pizza toppings, and then you realize there are like infinite pizza topping possibilities, you know? And that's sort of how it works when you spend enough time in the field helping people build stuff and building stuff yourself. And it's really the blessing and the curse of the online business space is that everything's working for somebody. And I think it's just a matter of figuring out what works for you.
I had that happen on a panel discussion once where somebody asked like, what's the best way, or what's your favorite way to find new clients? And I was the last person, and literally everybody gave something different. And so when I got the microphone, I was like, they all work.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. There's no one way.
The key is to find what works for you.
Amen. And also what you enjoy and what comes naturally. And this is same thing is true in branding, because I think where a lot of folks get really dizzy, especially in like the lead gen space or like the content space, is because they're trying to do like 6 platforms at once. They're trying to be absolutely brilliant on all of them. Like, friend, pick one. Where's your audience? Go to there and do your little dance. Leave the rest of this stuff alone in the meantime, and then you can repurpose later. But I think simplification just goes so far. Yeah. For stuff like that. And also if the testing one thing at a time is so important, just as you continue to build the business. One thing at a time too. Like, and to go back to what you were talking about earlier, like this isn't fucking Field of Dreams. Just because you love it and you build it and you're super excited about it does not mean they will come. Yeah. You have to carve off a piece of that enthusiasm and that love for what you're doing, or the belief that you're going to change the world, or that you want to help these people. And you got to reserve that for being your own best cheerleader.
This is something I struggle with myself too. So like I'm preaching to the choir here, but like if you build it, they will not come. You have to be out there telling people, I have a thing. It's really awesome.
Exactly.
Let me tell you about it.
Come check it out. Come bang that. Yeah. Bang that drum. Sorry. I'm banging my microphone. Bang your drum, bang your little drum, people. And I think it's, and I also want to state because I think a lot of folks, like, if you build it, they will come. Everyone sort of like, so this is sort of next to the myth of meritocracy, is the myth of discovery. That if it's like good enough, people will just find it. Not true. It does not happen. A myth. Sorry, everybody.
Yep.
And you have to promote it and you have to put it out there, but also, testing and failure is such an important part of the business growth process. And so if you build it and you promote it and they still do not come, that doesn't say anything about you as a person. Exactly. It just means that it was the wrong idea, the wrong audience, the wrong time. That's okay. And that's actually data you need in order to move forward. Like I have, oh my God, like so I have a group offer called the Thunder Collective. I call it my big things incubator. So it's really where business owners come when they have like a big visibility goal, or they want to be selling a new offer, or they want to be sort of pivoting the business a little bit. And it's for learn by doers. There's no content. It's just like, okay, you have all the education you need. You have all the resources. You're not doing the thing. Come in here. I'll give you feedback. We got a lot of support. We got a brain coach coming up for the next round.
Nice.
Yeah, I know it's gonna be really cool. But the interesting thing about Thunder is we're on our 4th season and it's different every time. And the first two, and there were actually 2 versions of it before then, which failed and did not work. But I believed in the idea. I knew I was onto something because the people who were in it loved it. It was just really hard to sell. So I was constantly iterating, constantly shifting. And I'm so glad that I didn't just throw out the baby with the bathwater and be like, well, this group thing, it's not for me. I'm never doing it again. Screw it. Like this model doesn't work. This clearly doesn't make sense. But I took the data about what worked and the data about what didn't, because it's also hard when you have somebody like in a community and they're like, I don't know, it just didn't work for me. It just wasn't like, I felt like it needed something. I needed something else. And I was like, oh no, I know the arrow in my little heart. Oh God. But that's part of it. And part of wanting to, part of doing well and learning how to do well and learning to be extraordinary at your craft and develop phenomenal offers is the ability to take that feedback in stride and not make it about you. And to say, and to sort of continue to pursue and adjust according to what you believe in and just following your instincts, but also remembering that like a failed launch, a product people didn't absolutely love, that doesn't mean you're a bad person or bad at your job. It's all part of the process. Not everything is going to be perfect out the gate. And that's part of the fun, frankly.
I love that you said that. It's not about you. When they have feedback, when they don't like it, when they troll your freaking ads, because they're going to do it.
Oh, that happens.
It's not about you. It has nothing to do with you. I've joked a couple times on the show before. The first time I ran ads to the podcast, that I got a bunch of trolls on it that were like putting what they thought were super clever spam gifts on. And I was like, do you sit alone
People
at
have
home
so much free time
screaming at the TV about the commercials instead of just changing the fucking channel?
Yeah, I know. Imagine being so bored, having nothing to do with your life. You go, well, in a small, and this is also, and this is part of the critique culture, I think, that's been festering a little bit in the space where it's like the toxicity and blah, 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 when people don't actually understand what's actually going on. Like, it's really not that bad. But you see that in the ad comments too. It's the same principle because you're advertising, because you are a business owner, because you are a brand, people see you as a little bit less than human, so that they feel like they can take these kicks and take these swings. And that's why I think that's been a big thing that I've learned over the years as the business has grown and grown. And as we've continued to sort of put ourselves more out there publicly and kind of get some of this trolley feedback, is the reality that like, oh, okay, so what's happening here is that this person doesn't see me as a human being. They see me as like a random face. They don't know me. They, as far as they know, I'm just not even here. And it's my team handling stuff. And in reality, like it's me opening my emails and reading these comments, guys. Yeah, it's me. But I think that as you grow, and especially if you're like pursuing quote unquote thought leadership, that is one of the hazards. When people see you as being in a position of power, as being successful, it becomes more and more enticing to try to take you down a peg. And I think women in particular will do this to each other in the online space. The gents tend to just ignore each other or like punch each other in the face. I'm like pretty sure how that works. That's how that works. But I see a lot of the critique that to me doesn't make sense because I have the experience to know that it's not accurate. A lot of it is based on people's fear, people's insecurities, often. And I found this in myself. Like what I had the most judgment around in business about other people was secretly under the layers what I had the most judgment about around myself. Where I was like, oh, look at her. She's always posting about her offers. Gross. And I was like, I should be posting about my offers more. And I wish I could do it so courageously. Like, oh, she's spending a lot of money on ads, like whatever. It's just, where does that kind of money come from? Oh, I really wish I could make ads work for me because it seems to be a great way to bring in new audience members, so it's underneath. And I was actually talking, I think, Linda Perry, we were talking a little bit about this on her podcast because she was like, what makes you cringe more than anything? And I was like, it is the people being like, I was successful. And here's a caveat to that. I'm like, oh, well, I grew up with privilege and all that. And that's important to recognize and acknowledge for sure. But I think we are all, it really speaks to this bigger moment we're having in the space where it's critique is a content strategy, which is fine. And I'm partially personally responsible for a lot of that. But it was always a reflection that if you're always preparing for people to look at you and feel insecure, you can't actually stop that. Nothing you can say will stop or halt that. And it's because, again, like that thing that we judge other people for so often is often a thing we wish we were doing more of ourselves or are capable of ourselves.
I love how that ties, I think, perfectly full circle with what we were talking about with empathy earlier.
Yeah.
Because something that became obvious to me in the last couple of years, especially, is that any one person in your life out of the billions of people on this planet only sees one tiny little portion of you at one specific time. And they're basing everything that they know and think about you on that tiny bit of data that they have. Even the people that know you best and love you best don't know the multitudes of you, don't understand you to the depth because you're the only one that's in your head. So like, if people don't get what you're about, okay, cool. Fuck off. There are plenty of other people out there for you. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, stop trying to make everyone else like you. You don't even like everybody.
Oh, that was like the game changer for me. Like, why do I care if you like me? I don't like you.
Yeah. And it's just, all of this is tied to growth. Like all of this is stuff that you learn along the way. And these are all theories that you test along the road. And it's so possible. It's again, like if I feel like year 2 or 3 in your business is kind of your teenage years where you really feel like you know it all. And then by year 5, 6, 7, 8, you're like, do I know nothing actually, like, who knows? And I'm much more, I think obviously there's some stuff in the space that's outright wrong and inappropriate and unethical, et cetera, et cetera. But overall, I find myself to be pretty agnostic. So when someone comes up to me and be like, did you see so-and-so doing this? I'm like, interesting. I wonder why that is. I don't grab the pitchfork as often anymore, I would say. And that's also, I think, again, I totally agree. This ties in with the empathy piece. It's like, what is empathy actually? Is it making somebody feel good about themselves? Or is it realizing that you just don't have the full picture with what you're looking at?
I think it's understanding and realizing that you're missing information. Exactly. Like you said, I don't have the full picture here. So I don't really have enough to form an opinion right now. And that's cool.
So how can I listen to this person, believe them, and give them like the next steps, or my thoughts? I think that's it's a skill like anything else. It's I think innate in relatively few people. People can be kind, but empathy is a little different.
Oh, yes, absolutely. This has been an amazing conversation and I kind of want to keep going for like several hours, but I'm going to stop it here and say we have to have a part 2.
All right. Deal. You promise?
Yes, absolutely promise. So tell us a little bit more about your business. Give us some linkies.
Absolutely. Okay. This is where I put on my radio announcer voice. So hang on.
Yes, do it.
You can read more about me over at my website at HillaryWeiss.com. That's www.HILLARYWEISS.com. You can also come say hi to me over on Instagram at HCWeiss. That's HCWEISS, where I'm often hanging out, doing obnoxious stories. My little show with Margot Aaron, Ham Jam, is over there. It's a really good time. And if you do come over and say hello, give me a little follow on Insta, please shoot me, bump my chin there. Please shoot me a DM and let me know what you liked about this episode. If there was any takeaways, if there's anything you agreed with or disagreed with, I would love to hear about it. Please come say hello. Don't be a stranger. I love meeting new folks. I'd love a chance to meet you. So come say hi. And thanks everybody so much for listening.
Oh, that's awesome. How is it that so many of us that do shows have an announcer voice? Like I'm gonna take us out with my radio voice.
Yes, there we go.
Permission to kick ass. You've been listening to Angie and Hillary. Have a nice day. So that is it. Another awesome episode of Permission to Kick Ass on the books. If you want to know more about the show, if you want to know more about me, Angie Coley, and the mission I'm on to help entrepreneurs punch fear in the face and do big, bold things, then head on over to permissiontokickass.com. That is all one word together, permissiontokickass.com. Make sure to sign up for my email list so that you know whenever there's a hot, fresh, and ready podcast episode out for you. And also on Mondays, I like to send out a little newsletter called Kick Monday's Ass. I'm sure you're totally surprised by that. So thank you for being here with me today. I'm Angie Coley. Make sure that you share this with a friend that needs to hear this message today. Like it, share it, comment wherever you're listening to this today, and let's go kick some ass.